This is one of my JavaScript projects. I have been working on this for a while. I made this project watching a tutorial, but I knew quite a bit of the stuff that the tutorial maker had explained. This game, the aim in the game is to shoot these, which are the enemies, and to stay alive for as long as you can. I still have yet to implement such things as a score, and yeah. So basically, if we get into the code now, this is the player class. This is where the player is set up. Think of a class as a template that an object uses to set up its properties. This is where the player is drawn, which is inside of the class itself because reasons. This is the projectile class. This is pretty much the same thing as the player class, but we've added properties such as velocities. And the drawing is pretty much the exact same as the player, but there's an extra feature called the update function. This is what basically keeps the game loop going. It is the game loop, in other words. Next up, we have the enemy class. This area is mainly just classes. Once again, this one has a velocity, like the projectile, but unlike the player. Over here, we draw the enemy, and over here, we update it. Updating the enemy is basically the same thing as updating the projectile, as they both move, meaning that they both need the game loop, which is the update. I'm sick. The particle class. The particles are these little dots, you could say, that come off when you shoot an enemy. So, for example, pew 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 pew. Okay, yep. See all those particles? Yeah. Depending on the size of what you shoot, a lot more. The size of what you shoot. I'm very bad at speaking. The amount of particles depends on the size of the enemy you shoot. Yeah, this one has some things like the save function and a restore function. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same, and also it has the global alpha equals its own alpha because of how it fades out after time. We also have an update function. It's the same as pretty much everything else, except this time we have its alpha subtracted by 0.01, which gives it that fading out effect, like that disappearing effect, I should say. Down here, we just set up the actual black canvas, the background, I guess you could say, and we also set the player to the middle. Over here we have the area where the player instance is set up, and the projectiles, enemies, and particles array are like where that's set up. Then we have the spawn enemies function. Here we have a set interval, and here inside that set interval is the radius constant, which chooses what radius the enemy is, basically from 4 pixels to 30 pixels. So the biggest one you could find would be 30 pixels. Then we determined where the enemy spawns, like up here, down here. I'm very bad at directions. Up here, down here, over here, or here. There's an occasional glitch where if you stop the game, if you go to a different tab and then come back, lots of enemies spawn all along the side, to make up for that lost time where nothing spawned. Here we have the color variable, which actually produces that random color. Like for this one is like a olive greenish color, while this one is a bright green. None of that gets chosen by me. It just gets chosen randomly by this here algorithm. This is the velocity. You know, it moves. All these enemies move inwards, and the velocity is set when they are spawned based on the angle. You know, coasting. We have some of those going. Here we have the animate function, which animates all the stuff. So basically, it allows all this to move. So without animate, none of this would actually be moving. It would basically be a static image of nothing, of just frozen stuff. Yeah. We also have some over here. We have where I can't really explain, but anyway, this is where the projectile is pretty much created, and here's pretty much, well, not created but like animated, and same with the enemies. Yeah, I actually have an animation library which is called GSAP, which helps a lot with all this like fading in and out stuff. We also have the event listeners, which check for when you click so that it will know when to shoot. It also looks for the position of your mouse and shoots in that angle at whatever you're pointing at. And then down here, which is the end of the code, we have the animate function, which gets called, and the spawn enemies function that also gets called. Here is some gameplay. They shrink, as you can see, every time I hit them. This one is quite a large one. Oh no. I am just randomly clicking buttons, hoping that I'll hit them. Which is actually a strategy, but not really. I could go on doing this forever, but I think that would be boring, so I'm just going to end the video here. So, bye.